Have you ever heard the metaphor before? Men are like microwaves and women are like crockpots? Just think, if we were all the same, we'd never leave the bedroom.
Or we'd never get in it.
God made us different for different reasons. For this section, Kate and I are going to be talking about the different perspectives for men and women related to sexual intimacy.
So you'll hear from both of us as we work through the different topics in this section. When it comes to sex and intimacy, we all come into marriage with a different picture of what it should look like and our own set of expectations. How often do you expect to have sex? What type of intimacy is important to you? What are your past experiences with intimacy? Most likely, your expectations are different than your partner's. A common difference is how often you expect to have sex. And if you're not in agreement, this can lead to confusion and unhappiness in your relationship. And just how much sex is normal? Well, ultimately, that's up to you. Some research reports that almost 80% of married couples have sex a few times a month or more. 32% reported having sex 2 to 3 times per week. 47% reported having sex a few times per month. Women's needs are different than those of men, so it's important to talk about what those needs are between the two of you. The fact is, in general, men's sex drives are stronger than women's. And that's true in our relationship. There are always going to be exceptions, but generally, men think about it and seek it out more often. According to Edward Lawman, in general for women, their sexual desire is more connected to the environment they're in and the context of the environment. It's true, we're different than men in the way we like the lead up to sexual intimacy. Men are built differently. They're ready the instant the word sex is spoken or even thought about. For women, remember this about your husband. And while he may seem exhausting at times, he loves you and wants you.
There's been a lot of research surrounding the topic of sex. And lately, some researchers believe that sex is more of an emotional experience for men than for women. Here's why. Men tend to express their feelings with actions, not words. Unlike women, most men don't have heart-to-heart chats and they limit their hugs and their physical affection. I know that's true for the majority of my friends. So when sex goes missing from a relationship, a lot of men lose their primary way of communicating and expressing intimacy. Taking away sex is like taking away their primary emotional outlet. Additionally, a recent study looked at sexual desire in long-term relationships, and it concluded that often people are better able to sustain their sexual desire when they're motivated to meet their partner's sexual needs, even when these needs conflict with their own preferences. Researchers call this sexual communal strength, and people who rate high in it are willing to engage in sexual activity with their partner even when it doesn't necessarily turn them on. They expect their partner will do the same for them, but it's definitely not a requirement. Now, this isn't to say that there won't be at times in your relationship when you need to respect the fact that your partner isn't in the mood or is simply too tired. What sexual communal strength is referencing is that in relationships where couples are able to keep the passion alive, both partners go out of their way to meet each other's needs. The idea is that your focus shouldn't be about getting what you want first. It's about giving first to your partner.
One of the biggest challenges is learning how to talk about what you want and what you don't want. What makes you feel sexy? What does your partner do that makes you feel the most loved and appreciated? You've heard the common theme about good communication in your relationship, and there's no exception for this topic. Communication is the key to a more happy, fulfilling, and intimate relationship. It will allow you to work through whatever issues and feelings surround this topic, and for you to continue meeting one another's needs for intimacy and closeness. Oftentimes, one of you may have a harder time talking about what you desire and communicating what you want. What we've seen through surveys we've conducted with couples is that when asked the question about their sexual relationship, guys will say it's great, women will say it could be better. And what we typically find is that these women are not telling their husband that. They keep it to themselves. Sex is such an intimate thing. Because it's so personal, we're afraid to say our true feelings, afraid of judgment, ridicule, and ultimately afraid of embarrassment. But remember that you're talking to your best friend, the person you trust the most. And remember, adding in a little lighthearted humor may help to ease any tension brought on by the subject. Have fun with each other, be playful. While this is serious, it should also be the topic that brings joy and laughter. Share inside jokes with each other and enjoy the fact that this is just between you.
Intimacy in your relationship can't be overlooked, and neither can talking about it with each other. If you're unable to sort through your feelings together, meet with a counselor or a therapist who can help you have those conversations. There are counselors who are trained especially in the art of sexual therapy who can make suggestions as to how to reconnect emotionally and physically. Often, couples simply need to have a talk about painful issues in their life together that they've not been able to resolve. So what does intimacy mean to you? The umbrella of sexual intimacy includes such things as holding hands, hugging, flirting, kissing, and being physically playful. But to be honest, it really comes down to what you both feel is intimate in your relationship. It's unique to you. What's important to recognize is that your intimate life together can either be incredible or it can be miserable. You decide that. If you think there needs to be changes in your sex life, start by examining the emotional intimacy in your relationship. That's where it all begins. And here's something to remember. You'll never achieve intimacy in your bedroom or any part of your marriage if you don't respect it and keep it private. Don't brag to your buddies about your sex stories. And instead of complaining to your friends, share that feedback with your partner. One of the keys to getting what you want sexually and intimately in your relationship is to always treat each other with mutual respect and understanding. Your partner's sexual needs are just as important as yours. And so it's important that you both feel free to express your needs and desires to one another. And if I'm going to give you any advice about when to bring something up related to your sex life, don't do it right after you've had sex. Wait until the right time. We've talked about how important our approach is when we're communicating with our spouse. Be sensitive to each other's feelings. You're about to talk about one of the most personal and touchy subjects, and the last thing you want to do is offend your spouse.
One of the biggest challenges in a relationship is when a couple deals with past sexual abuse. If that's an issue for either one of you, be aware of how that can affect your relationship and how those negative feelings may be triggered. So be gentle and respectful and make sure that you take the time to work through those issues and resolve them completely. If you don't, they will continue to resurface and affect your relationship. And seek help from a counselor if the issues seem too large for the two of you to handle on your own.
The subject of pornography is also a subject which couples need to talk about. And guys, not to pick on you, but we deal with pornography addiction with a lot more men than we do women. Either way, pornography can be a great source of pain in any relationship. The message you're sending to your spouse, even without intention, is that he or she isn't fulfilling all of your needs or isn't enough for you. It can also feed your spouse's fears that you won't be able to keep your vows of being faithful for the rest of your lives. In other words, trust levels can be greatly hurt if one of you is engaged in these types of activities. The other thing is that pornography is one of the fastest growing addictions in the country. So if this is an issue in your relationship, make sure to talk about this during your couples time and express your true feelings about pornography. Our best advice is to stay away from it.
And finally, remember that marriage isn't just about sex, but it is important. Sex is something you share only with your spouse, and it's designed to keep between the two of you. Sex and the meaning behind it brings an entirely different dimension into your marriage. So remember, it's not your marital duty or a chance to repay a favor. It's not a substitute for verbal communication or to be used to overcome feelings of inferiority. It's not to be used as a form of self-gratification, and most important, it's not to be used as a weapon. What it is meant for is to create more intimacy in your relationship and to show love to one another. Sex is intended to be a complement to your relationship. It carries with it emotional, physical, and spiritual attributes. So be sensitive, caring, and empathetic when talking about this part of your life together.